she revealed the shocking truth. How a maid inspired a billionaire's transformative decision. Clara's fingers brushed over the fine fabric of the penthouse's plush sofa. Dusted golden rays of sunlight drew her attention to the marble flooring beneath her worn-out shoes. Each day in the lavish hotel felt surreal, like stepping into a dream that only a few had the privilege to live. Outside these walls, life demanded her attention as a single mother to little Charlie, relying on her paychecks to ensure he could dream beyond this gilded cage. But today, something shifted within her. While straightening couch cushions, a fragile envelope slipped from its hiding place, fluttering to the floor. Clara's heart thudded as she knelt, reaching for the hidden letters. Her pulse quickened, alternating between intrigue and dread. What she uncovered whispered of a tarnished legacy, betrayal, anger, and family secrets that distorted the image of billionaire Jack Donovan, a sharp contrast to the man she glimpsed in fleeting encounters. Should she read on, risking the delicate balance of her already precarious existence? Internal voices clashed within her, a tempest of hope and fear. The thought of making a difference inhaled fresh air into her lungs, yet anxiety warped her reality. What if Jack discovered she had read things he never wanted anyone to know? But Charlie deserved more. He deserved a mother who was brave enough to confront the truth, who could fight fiercely for a future free from his own struggles. Coffee-scented dreams of better days swirled with the heaviness of her reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Clara inhaled deeply, remembering Charlie's sweet laughter, the way his bright eyes lit up with dreams. It was then that she understood why reading those letters mattered. A chance at empowerment, to break chains of secrecy not just for Jack, but for her son. With clammy hands, she gathered her resolve. Confronting Jack wouldn't just be about revealing the truth. It would be a reckoning, a change she desperately craved for herself, for Charlie. When Jack returned home, Clara barely recognized his confident demeanor, cloaked in the thorns of his family's legacy. She could hear her heart in her ears as they faced each other. Time suspended while Luna gazed at the golden facade of the skyline outside. As words spilled forth, the initial nerves transformed into passionate resolve. They clashed over assumptions of worth, over the disconnection between their worlds. Jack's entitlements, layered with vulnerabilities, became exposed, the very fabric of his self-perception unraveling in front of her. Pain surged as Jack faltered in his defenses. Would he drown in the power struggles of his family? Or could he grasp the opportunity Clara presented, a chance for meaningful change? Uncertainty seemed to weave a thick net around them both, each word more abrasive than the last, igniting a storm of emotional turmoil. Who held the right to define success? Clara's resolute spirit was thrust into the air, while within Jack, a tempest of doubt and ambition battled silently. In the rising tension, everything they stood for began to fray. Clara was teetering on the precipice, desperate for him to see the dichotomy that tethered their lives. The question loomed heavy in the air: could two people from clashing worlds reconcile their journeys? Or would their paths diverge in the wake of truths too powerful to bear? As the shadows of the past encroached deeper, the stakes surged higher, leaving Clara crushed beneath the weight of her own decision. While Jack grappled with the unraveling of his complete life, how long could each of them endure the silence of what had been left unspoken? Clara found herself standing at the edge of an emotional cliff, torn between her innate desire to push forward and the suffocating fear of what lay beyond. Jack's gaze bore into hers, searching for understanding, but also laced with trepidation. The air between them crackled, charged with revelations and unspoken fears. Clara had spent years navigating the complexities of her life as a single mother, feeling the weight of each decision ripple outward. Now, armed with hidden truths and newfound resolve, she felt the urge to break the silence. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling yet steady, "you've inherited a legacy weighted down by pain. Those letters, they show a man you've yet to confront. Jack furrowed his brow, a mixture of determination and dread flickering within his expressive eyes. And what do you know about my pain? His question cut through the heavy tension, igniting a fire in the pit of her stomach. Clara shifted, steeled by the need for authenticity. I know about pain, she countered, surprising herself with the depth of her conviction. I may not wear a suit or drive a luxury car, but I feel every day the sacrifices I make for Charlie. It's not the wealth that defines us, it's how we choose to wield our stories. Clara's words hung in the air, heavy with raw honesty. Jack blinked, momentarily struck by her clarity. Clara could see the wheels turning within his mind, the barriers of entitlement wavering. She pressed on, sensing she was approaching a pivotal moment in their volatile dance. You think allowing yourself to feel pain makes you vulnerable, but it's a strength and awakening. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. You can either continue to dwell in the shadows of your ancestors or become a force for empowerment, not just for you, but for those you care about. An unexpected silence enveloped them. Clara felt exposed, yet liberated, as if each letter had freed a dam of truth that had long held her hostage. Jack remained still, his expression unreadable, though his presence seemed to shift, first constricted, then gradually opening into a realm of possibilities. I never asked for this, he finally admitted, his voice like gravel, weathered but unwavering. This life was chosen for me. The admission rocked Clara. In this moment of authenticity, both felt the stark boundaries of identity blur. You have the power to redefine it, Jack, Clara urged. It's not about rejecting your heritage, but about transforming it. Be the person who breaks the cycle. For a fleeting moment, Clara envisioned a future where Jack and Charlie might share a bond, one built on understanding rather than muted expectations. Yet, what came next could slice through that nascent dream. Jack's fists clenched, unmasked conflict tightening his features. You don't understand, he hissed. To break away from my family is to risk everything I've built. And what is that worth? Clara challenged. Her heart raced, her mind clear. If it's built on a foundation of lies? As they stood locked in this fierce confrontation, Clara realized this was not merely a negotiation. It was a test of wills, a crucible for both of their identities to emerge reshaped. But as their voices rose, an unsettling realization emerged: each had ghosts lingering in the shadows, shaped by love and vulnerability. Everything they had fought for was now on the line. With a sudden clarity, Clara knew she had to lay everything bare. What if we worked together? You, me, Charlie, we could be more than victims to our past. But only if you want it. Jack met her gaze. Anxiety mingled with deep yearning, but uncertainty remained behind his eyes. The silence thickened, tinged with a sense of impending change. As Clara contemplated the cost of honesty, the scarlet thread of doubt began to unravel Jack's world even further. Could they carve a new path forward together, free from the legacies that bound them? The challenge was real, but the potential was infinite. Clara felt invigorated by the germination of an idea, one powerful enough to spellbind both tracks of their tumultuous lives. Would Jack embrace this chance to rebuild? With every question they faced, the truth was beckoning them both toward an inevitable confrontation with their deepest fears. As they stared at one another, grasping desperately for understanding, the next choice loomed, poised to either annihilate or restore their fractured realities. Would they dare to confront the darkness, or would they allow it to defeat them both? Clara's heart pounded in her chest, the weight of Jack's contemplation heavy in the silence between them. She could sense the flickering of his resolve, the tension wrapped around his decision like a vice, squeezing out the choices he had long avoided. Clara knew she had stripped the facade off the reality he had spent years constructing, and it was a dangerous game. Jack, she urged, her voice now softer, almost pleading. What if the risk you fear is the very thing that can set you free? We can redefine what your legacy means. His eyes flickered away, searching the corners of the room as if the answer lay behind the delicate paint on the walls. In that fleeting moment, Clara writhed with frustration. She remembered her own awakening, how challenging her circumstances had been the catalyst for her growth. So much was at stake between them. The sound of her daughter's laughter drifted through her mind, reminding her of why she fought against the current. Free from my family. You don't know what you're asking. Jack's voice trembled, caught between desperation and refusal. He took a step back, distancing himself, physically and emotionally. Every instinct screamed at her to hold him steady, to bridge the gap. But Clara knew she couldn't carry this burden alone. Jack needed to uncover the strength she saw lurking beneath his bravado. She took a measured step toward him, refusing to let fear dictate her movements. "You're right," she acknowledged. "I can't know exactly what you face. But I can share my journey, my mistakes, my triumphs. Every time I chose to confront my past rather than hide, I grew stronger." Her honesty poured out, a river of vulnerability intertwined with the clarity of purpose. Jack turned to her, curiosity battling with skepticism. "And what if confronting it means I lose everything I've built? I have a life, a job, a reputation." "Reputation," Clara echoed, deeply considering his words. "What does it mean if it's built on the remains of your family's expectations? You're suffocating under the weight of others' decisions. What if you could awaken the real Jack, the one untethered from those shadows?" The silence returned, a thick blanket of tension that tempted despair but also kindled a light of possibility. Clara stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper laden with determination. "Imagine a future where you and Charlie can thrive, not as prisoners of the past, but as architects of your futures." For the first time, she saw a flicker of something else in his expression, a glimmer of hope, threatening to breach the fortress of doubt. It had been so long since Jack allowed himself to imagine an alternative, and the idea teetered on the precipice of his fear. "I've sacrificed so much to maintain this lifestyle," Jack finally admitted, as if speaking the words would lessen their weight. "What if I'm not enough without it?" A fierce resolve ignited within Clara. Here was a debt that extended beyond material loss. It was deeply steeped in identity. "Who are you really, Jack?" That's the question we need to answer. The world beyond your family's influence might feel foreign, but maybe that's where you can find your true self. You don't need to hold on to this identity if it isn't serving you or those you love. His shoulders stiffened as the dilemma settled around them again. Clara's mind raced. They stood on razor-thin ice. But her intuition pushed her to dig deeper, to dismantle the lingering fears. "What does it mean to you to create your own legacy?" "I don't know," he whispered, his vulnerability laid bare. "I can't see beyond this moment. Let us figure it out together." Then, Clara urged, using his breaking point as an opportunity to strengthen their connection. The door to transformation cracked open, and they both felt it. "Take my hand, Jack," she said firmly, not giving him a choice to retreat. "Let us walk this path, even if it's just one step at a time." Just as Jack shifted forward, there was a knock at the door, slicing through the raw exchange. The interruption pulled them back from the precipice, snapping. The frayed thread of connection forged in their intense moment. Clara's stomach sank, the urgency of their conversation dwindling against the encroaching reality. "Who could that be?" Jack murmured, his earlier resolve wavering, worry evident in his furrowed brow. Clara searched his eyes, sensing the retreat behind his guarded demeanor. The potential of their conversation suddenly felt fragile, as if it could dissipate with the slightest breath. What new tension awaited them at that door, and would it catalyze their resolve or deepen their uncertainty? Clara steeled herself, knowing that no matter who stood on the other side, her path forward was unyielding and bold. Their decisions loomed larger than ever, teetering on the edge of revelation. Would this visitor be the catalyst to rekindle the momentum, or would it send Jack spiraling backward into the shadows? Clara held her breath, the knock on the door echoing like a heartbeat through the tension-filled room. Jack's expression wavered, caught between a flicker of determination and the familiar pull of anxiety. The fabric of their conversation, so close to unraveling the complexities of his identity, felt at risk of being torn away by an outside force. "Stay focused," she silently reminded herself, crossing her arms to ground her thoughts and evoke a sense of stability in the face of unpredictability. She might have prepared herself for a conversation about fear and legacy, but she wasn't ready for the potential disruptions that awaited them. "Do you want to get that?" Clara prompted, her voice tinged with a mixture of urgency and caution. It felt like a test of his willingness to confront not only the world outside, but also the inner conflicts he had kept at bay. As if sensing her hesitance, Jack tensed, a deep-rooted wariness brewing behind his eyes. Maybe it's someone from my family, Jack exhaled, almost as if the thought strangled the hope inflating their moment. Or maybe it's someone who can offer clarity, she pushed, the vulnerability of their previous conversation hanging in the balance. You have a choice here. You can either let their influence dictate your next step, or you can decide for yourself. The door creaked open, revealing a young woman wearing a hesitant smile, her eyes darting between the two of them as she stepped inside. It was Amelia, Jack's assistant, her presence an unexpected intrusion that somehow felt inevitable. Sorry to interrupt, she stammered, glancing at Jack. I just thought you might want to know that your dad is on the phone. He seems agitated. The words settled between them like a cold weight. Jack's expression shifted, the earlier hope dissipating like mist in sunlight. The specter of his father loomed large in the room. Clara desperately searched for a way back, a lifeline out of the newly thickening fog. Let him wait, Clara urged, her voice steady, propelled by a certainty she hadn't anticipated. She reached for Jack's hand, but he stood frozen, a distant look settling on his features. I can't ignore him, he said, his voice cracking with the tension of conflicting obligations. He needs this from me. I can't just turn him away. Need or want? Clara challenged, unwilling to let the conversation slip through her fingers. Amelia, can you give us a moment? Jack's tone, firm but conflicted, brought a brief flash of relief to Clara. She nodded mechanically, but as she turned to leave, she hesitated at the door, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Jack, think about what you want, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Not what you're expected to want. Once they were alone again, the silence grew oppressive. Clara could almost see the wheels turning in Jack's mind. She needed him to confront this frustration as she had once confronted her own fears. Clara, he dragged a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling back to the surface. It always comes back to him. I can't just disappear. Maybe you don't need to disappear, but rather, transform, she pressed, her brow knitted with purpose. What did you learn on the path to your corporate success? It started with risks that most avoided. You faced them before, Jack. For the first time since Amelia walked in, Jack's gaze sharpened, focusing like a camera lens on a point of clarity. But what if I fail? What if this is a mistake? The question hung heavily, distorted by his inherent fear of failure, but Clara viewed it as an opportunity disguised as a threat. Then it will teach you just as your past does, time and time again. You won't lose everything, Jack. You'll gain yourself. The flicker of awareness was undeniable. Jack's shoulders relaxed slightly, and his breath grew steadier. But as quickly as it came, the flicker dimmed under the weight of expectation. He turned slightly away, the uncertainty creeping in as he faced his own thoughts. I don't know if I can navigate this alone. The chains feel too tight. Then let me help you. Shatter them, Clara insisted, resolutely raising her chin to meet his distant gaze, challenging him to embrace the fear and forge new paths. Just then, the phone rang, slicing through the charged atmosphere with a jarring urgency. Jack glanced instinctively at the device, the temptation to answer battling against the resolve she fought to build between them. Take it, Clara urged. But know that you're not just a passenger in this life, you're the driver. When you pick up that phone, decide who you're answering to. As Jack reached for the phone, Clara realized that no matter how he responded, the choice he would make would redefine him in ways he had yet to imagine. Would he succumb to the old legacy, or step boldly into a future crafted by his own hands? The moment stretched tight with unresolved possibilities, and as Jack lifted the receiver to his ear, Clara held her breath, wondering whether the dialogue on the other end would pull him back or push him over the edge of transformation. Jack's hand trembled slightly as he brought the receiver to his ear, a sensation of gravity weighing heavily upon him. The voice on the other end crackled through the static of expectation, his father, demanding, filled with urgency. Even before he spoke, Jack could feel the familiar pressure building, as if the relationship itself was tightening its grip around him. Jack, his father's voice jolted him, instantly shifting the ambient tension into a simmering rage. I need to talk to you about the company. Things are changing, and you have to get on board. With each word, Jack's stomach twisted tighter in knots, the relentless echoes of demands around performance and duty crashing against the fragile sense of identity he was fighting to build. A part of him wanted to shove the phone away, Escape the conversation before it spiraled into the same predictable cycle of manipulation. What if I don't want to? His voice was a blend of defiance and uncertainty, an undercurrent of anger lacing through it. What do you mean, you don't want to? This is your future we're talking about, his father snapped, the edge of disappointment cutting deeper than Jack expected. He felt the emotional tug-of-war beginning, caught between an allegiance to legacy and a longing to redefine his own narrative. I can't keep pursuing what you want. The words slipped out faster than he could contain them. I need to find my own path. I'm tired of living up to expectations that don't reflect me. A silence fell on the line, heavy and charged. Jack's heart raced at the prospect of setting a boundary, something he had only ever fantasized about. But beneath the initial surge of courage lay a well of fear that would inevitably draw him back into the fold, tight and suffocating. Listen to yourself. Do you think you're equipped to run things on your own? His father finally replied, a thinly veiled taunt disguised as concern. Why shouldn't I be? Jack shot back, confronting the inherited narrative that had claimed his beliefs for far too long. I've built successes in my own right. I don't need your approval. Clarity pierced through the storm of his emotions, a moment where frustration transformed into resolve. He remembered Clara's encouragement and the flickering hope that had danced in the space between them earlier. Resist the urge to fold. Life was not merely a series of compliance and obligation. Jack, you're still young, his father continued, the tone lighter now, but wrapped tightly with condescension. You'll understand this better once the stakes are higher. No, I think you're the one who doesn't understand, Jack interjected, feeling an unfamiliar sense of empowerment swelling within his chest. This isn't just business, it's my life. Stop expecting me to follow a predetermined route. Are you really prepared to throw everything away? His father's voice trembled with the weight of disbelief. The question hung in the air, hanging on a knife's edge of possibility. What was it to truly throw everything away? To Jack, it was not merely the company name, the legacy. It was the emotional prison that he felt had held him captive. No, he said quietly but firmly, but I am ready to build something authentic, something real. I will not stand by and watch you ruin everything, his father said, the threat laced through every syllable, a cascade of familial loyalty mingling with personal ambition. Jack's jaw clenched. Yes, there was risk. Yes, there would be conflict. But in that moment of rebellion, he also felt the thrill of freedom gnawing at the edges of his fears. Well then, you'll have to get used to the idea that I will choose my own path. This is my life, and I will take responsibility for the direction in which it heads. The call dropped, leaving behind a deafening silence. Jack was stunned, staring at the phone as if it were a stranger in his hand. He had held his ground. A fissure had opened up, revealing the dim light of newfound confidence. Turning to Clara, whose eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and anticipation, Jack noted the dramatic shift in his own demeanor. For the first time, he might be on the verge of defining his existence, untethered from the chains of expectation. What do I do next? He asked, barely masking the tremor in his voice. Now we build, Clara said, stepping closer, a smile wrapping around her words. Let us identify what this new path truly means for you. As they began to map out his vision, a flutter of excitement ignited within him. But as their conversation deepened, Jack couldn't shake the growing realization that the windfall of his newly forged identity would invite its own set of challenges. Would family loyalty prove to be the ultimate test of his conviction? The weight of transformation loomed large yet inviting, and as Jack stared into the future with ambiguous eagerness, he understood that the real work was only just beginning. What doorways were yet to open, and would he have the courage to step through them, unafraid? Jack sat in the small cafe, its rustic charm slightly dulled by the shadows of self-doubt swirling around him. The warm aroma of fresh coffee faded into the background as he stared at the blank pages of a notepad, his mind racing with possibilities and fears alike. Clara had suggested he sketch out his vision, but the ink remained untouched, an unsettling reminder of the tasks yet to be tackled and the goals still shrouded in uncertainty. Have you thought about what you truly want to achieve? Clara's voice sliced through the silence, her concern evident despite her gentle tone. She leaned forward, encouraging him to unearth the aspirations hidden beneath his hesitations. I thought I did, he replied, his voice low. But each time I try to articulate it, it feels like chasing smoke. I don't even know if I'm capable of breaking free from this. He trailed off, the weight of his heritage constricting his throat. From your father? Clara interjected, her eyes steady on him. You've made a huge step already. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. What did you envision for yourself before this call? Jack could feel the threads of his dreams alongside his father's directives slowly tangling into one another. He thought back to moments of genuine joy building that small app in college that had exceeded his expectations, receiving praise from a handful of close friends for its simplicity and intuitiveness. I wanted to create something new, something that has real value. I guess I forgot that amid everything else. Then let us start there, Clara encouraged, her enthusiasm brightening the atmosphere. What does value look like to you? Jack leaned back, his mind wrestling with the juxtaposition of his past ambitions and current realities. I want to build something that helps people. Something accessible. A business that doesn't thrive on legacy but instead embraces innovation. Something alive. Clara nodded, igniting a fire in Jack's resolve. Great. Focus on that. But what is holding you back? The relationships, he admitted, feeling strangely liberated by the honesty. They feel suffocating. The expectations wrapped tightly around success and image, especially from my father. I can't constantly gauge my worth based on someone else's framework. That's a powerful recognition, Clara said, her voice steady. And facing that head-on will be your greatest challenge. Do you think it's even possible? Jack's self-doubt bubbled back to the surface, overshadowing his newfound resolve. Absolutely, Clara replied with conviction. But it will require sacrifice your comfort, familiar faces, and perhaps even certain aspirations. What kind of leader do you want to be? The question echoed, reverberating through Jack's mind. He sat in that cafe, the warmth mixing with the chill of fear coursing through him. Yet for the first time, he felt the stirrings of a new identity emerging. A transparent one, he finally said, conviction and uncertainty battling for dominance. A leader who listens rather than dictates. One who promotes ideas from the ground up. Clara's smile widened, and for a moment, it illuminated the depths of his potential. They spent the next hour brainstorming outlines, discussing values, principles of leadership, and practical steps Jack could take. Clara's enthusiasm was infectious, and their energy flowed seamlessly from one idea to the next. Jack could feel himself slowly being pulled back to the remainder of his possible future. But as the afternoon sunlight began to fade, a sudden thought halted his momentum. Would his father respect any direction he chose or consider it an affront to the family legacy? The self-imposed chains had begun to rattle, reminding him of the impending confrontation that awaited him. Clara, what if he comes back at me with threats? What if he decides to cut me off completely? The anxious tremors returned as he envisioned the confrontation ahead. Then you prepare for that, too, Clara said. It's part of the journey. You're laying down the groundwork for something substantial, but that means tough decisions. Every step will define your boundaries. Jack took a deep breath, staring at the list of values and goals they had drafted. Clara was right. He needed to define not just his aspirations, but also the costs of pursuing them. Recognizing the weight of those confrontations helped settle something in him. As they prepared to leave, Jack felt a mix of apprehension and an exhilarating sense of purpose. He wasn't sure if he was strong enough for the battles ahead, but acknowledging those fears was the first step. Are you ready to face the future, Jack? Clara asked as they stepped out. Not fully, but I have to be. It's time to confront the real stakes, he replied, grounding himself in the gravity of his statement. As they walked, Jack's heart beat steadily, echoing a determined rhythm. Would he have the fortitude to weather the storm of legacy, set against the backdrop of his father's expectations? Another layer of his identity was waiting to be laid bare, and the thought both thrilled and terrified him. Would confrontation serve as the crucible for his transformation, or would it break him? The path ahead was uncertain, but Jack felt the contours of a new beginning materializing. He had to prepare, unearthing the depths of his determination to face whatever lay ahead. It was time to break the patterns, step through the doorway, and finally stand on the ground of his choosing. The morning light poured through the window as Jack prepared for the day ahead. The previous night had been restless, thoughts spinning like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. As he dressed, his hands trembled slightly, his pulse echoing the uncertainty stirring inside him. Today, he would face his father, the bearer of expectations heavy enough to crush dreams. In the quiet of his apartment, he replayed Clara's words in his mind. Each repetition reinforced the need to stand his ground. He realized that the confrontation was not just about meeting with his father. It was the beginning of a long-overdue dialogue with himself. Jack had started to recognize that he was too bound to his father's legacy, and breaking those ties required more than just resolve. It demanded a fierce commitment to his own identity. As he washed his face, he caught a glimpse of his reflection. This man, a stranger to him until recently, seemed to glow slightly with the embers of ambition. He was no longer just the son of a magnate. He was an individual with his own vision lurking beneath the surface, preparing to be unleashed. He needed to convey that to his father today. He made his way to the office, the walls around him lined with memories of his youth. Photos of awards won, pressures mounted, and expectations upheld. But now they felt like chains that he was ready to dismantle. The elevator ride felt like a countdown, each floor bringing him closer to the penthouse, closer to his father. As he stepped into the sleek, modern office, all sharp lines and polished surfaces, he felt the familiar weight of anticipation. His father stood there, a king surveying his domain, confidence radiating from him like heat. "Jack," he greeted, the tone a mix of warmth and authority. "You look well. Let us get to business." "Actually, I'd prefer to discuss something different today," Jack said, surprising even himself with the assertiveness that sliced through the air like a knife. He clenched his fists, grounding himself. "I need to share my vision for my future." His father's eyebrows arched slightly, curiosity piqued, but skepticism evident. "Your vision? We both know what's expected." "No, Dad," Jack asserted. "What's expected of me isn't the same as what I want to achieve. I've been thinking more about my values, and what kind of company I want to build, one that genuinely creates value through innovation, not just by riding on family name." The silence that followed felt like a chasm opening between them. Jack could almost hear the gears shifting in his father's brain, processing the shift in dynamics. "Jack, do you understand the implications of what you're saying? The family brand you carry is precious. To forsake it is reckless," his father replied, a slight frown creasing his forehead. "Reckless or courageous?" Jack questioned silently. "If I keep bending to that brand without infusing my own values into it, then what am I really building? I want to lead with transparency and connectivity, not just authority." The confrontation intensified, palpable tension accumulating in the room. Jack felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. He was grappling with the core of his identity, a battle so profound that it could shape not just his future, but the legacy he eventually chose to leave. His father's eyes narrowed, a flicker of anger sparking in his gaze. "And should I just stand by while you pursue a fantasy? This isn't just business, Jack. It's blood." Jack's heart raced, caught between anger and realization. "It's also my life, my dreams at stake. If I fail to lead authentically, then I risk losing everything: my dreams, my identity. I can't allow family ties to dictate my worth." The room fell into an icy silence, the echoes of their exchanged declarations reverberating. Jack's mind raced with possibilities for reinventing his narrative, mixing elements of ambition with an unwavering resolve. He might risk everything, but perhaps it was the only real way to find himself. As he prepared to leave the office, Jack caught a glimpse of his father's expression, confusion mingled with a flicker of respect. Could it be that he was finally breaking through the walls of expectation? Perhaps this was the beginning of something transformative, not just for himself, but for the entire family legacy. With each step he took away from the office, Jack felt lighter, as if he had peeled away a layer of an oppressive, protective shell. But even amidst the excitement, doubt crept in. Would this boldness unravel his family's ties? He didn't have answers yet, only the resolve to continue exploring his own potential as a leader. The certainty he once felt began to slip like grains of sand through his fingers. Could he maintain this course and still remain connected to his heritage? The stakes were higher than ever, and Jack knew he could not turn back. His journey for clarity and resolve had only begun. What lay ahead in the ambitions he dared to forge? It was time for another decision, another risk. Would he embrace the unknown or retreat into familiarity? With the confrontation lingering in his thoughts, Jack felt the weight lift slightly as the future beckoned, full of possibilities yet to unfold. The air outside felt different as Jack stepped into the bustling streets. The chaos of the city seemed to mirror the turmoil within him, yet there was a flicker of something new, a determination rooted in the revelations of the day before. He had voiced his aspirations. He wasn't just a reflection of his father's empire. He was a dynamic force in the making. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking his thoughtful stride. It was Clara, her words still ringing in his ears from their last conversation. "You're more than what they expect of you, Jack. Remember that." He hesitated before responding, contemplating how deeply her encouragement had impacted him. He replied with a simple, "Thank you. Let us meet later to catch up." As he made his way to his favorite coffee shop, Jack's mind was alive with plans. He envisioned a company where innovative ideas flourished, where voices could be heard without the weight of legacy overshadowing them. In that moment, he realized he needed allies, people who believed in progress rather than tradition alone. The coffee shop's familiar scent enveloped him as he settled down at a corner table. He pulled out a notepad and began to jot down ideas. Each word flowed effortlessly. Something within him began to click. Embracing a culture of creativity and authenticity, Jack wondered who could help him amplify his vision. Suddenly, he recalled talking to Sophia, a talented junior marketing strategist known for her innovative digital campaigns. She was often underestimated, working diligently in the shadows while the spotlight remained fixed on others. Jack admired her tenacity, and an idea sparked. He could invite her in on this venture. She might see the vision clearly, just as he did. Heart racing with the thrill of this prospect, he shot her a quick text. "Can we meet? I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you." The reply came almost instantly, affirming her excitement. This was the first step, a move towards building a new foundation. Over the next few days, Jack engrossed himself in research and immersing himself in industry trends. He reached out to other colleagues, gauging their feelings about innovation within the company, gauging potential discontent under the layers of expectations. Every conversation became a thread woven into the fabric of his emerging vision. This was no longer just an idea. It was turning into a palpable entity that he could sense blossoming around him. The evolution of his passion brought an unexpected weight of responsibilities. Each potential ally he spoke to was a leap into the unknown, a challenge that could either propel him forward or dissolve his ambitions. And yet, his confidence grew with every conversation, each interaction affirming that this was the path he was meant to take. Yet, uncertainty lingered. Jack felt the imminent threat of his father's influence still overshadowing this delicate progress. What if his father found out about his intentions before he was ready? What if he attempted to sabotage Jack's budding leadership? The tension grew in Jack's chest, a reminder that his father still held the ultimate gatekeeper role. One evening, as he was poring over market analysis data at his desk, Clara called him. She had sensed a shift in his tone the last time they spoke and wanted to understand better. As he shared his plans, he felt the swell of excitement match an undercurrent of fear rather than overshadow it. Clara smiled at the other end of the line, her enthusiasm palpable even through the connection. "Jack, this is amazing. But don't forget, you'll need to protect yourself, your ideas, and your team. You're stepping into a new world, where shadows linger and alliances mean everything." Her words echoed ominously in his mind as he hung up. It became evident. The stakes of his ambitions were higher than he realized, and he'd have to navigate carefully. He felt a gnawing pull toward a secret veiled in complexity, one that could either strengthen his resolve or tear at the fabric he was trying to weave. As determination surged within him, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window. This was the moment where he must stand firm against the oncoming tides. Could he reshape the narrative without succumbing to familial pressure? Fueled by a newfound purpose, he committed himself to developing a strategic plan, one that not only raised his voice, but also established the foundation for the new company. The winds of change began to swirl around him, and the question of how to embrace that change now took center stage. What untold challenges lay ahead as Jack prepared to confront yet another hidden truth waiting to reveal itself in this path he was forging? Jack woke up earlier than usual, his mind buzzing with ideas and possibilities. The weight of the decisions he had begun to make pressed down on him. But beneath it all lay a current of excitement that pulled him toward the unknown. His vision for a different kind of company hadn't just awakened genius. It had ignited a fire deep inside him. Sitting at his kitchen table, he focused on what lay ahead. The thought of including Sophia was exhilarating. She had a fresh perspective that could elevate their efforts. He wondered how she would react to the changes he envisioned, and his gut instinct told him she would embrace the challenge. Yet doubt gnawed at him as he recognized that partnership could bring unforeseen entanglements, further complicating his path to autonomy. Before the morning light could fully break, Jack showered, dressed, and set out for the day. His routine, once neatly aligned with the expectations of his father's empire, now felt unshackled. The city around him thrummed with life, a tone of vibrant possibility that mirrored his resolve. His first meeting with Sophia was intended to be different. This was about building a new foundation, not a mere brainstorming session. He arrived at the coffee shop early, eyes scanning for her familiar face amongst the crowd. When she arrived, her enthusiasm was palpable. "Jack, I've been thinking what's this big opportunity you texted about?" Her hazel eyes sparkled with curiosity and ambition. He took a deep breath, launching into his vision with palpable fervor. As he spoke, he saw her nodding along, the spark of innovation lighting in her gaze. "I want us to create a space where creativity thrives, where our team can voice new ideas, uninhibited by traditional constraints," he declared, his heart racing. "We could reimagine the way our company engages with its audience, turning it into an interactive community." Sophia beamed. "That's incredible. The way the market is shifting, there's a gap for exactly what you're proposing. Let us leverage social media, influencer partnerships. We can reshape the narrative." They spent hours discussing strategies, each idea generating new ones. Jack felt the exhilarating pull of collaboration. It was as if they were weaving dreams into tangible fabric. But the deeper he ventured into that territory, the more he realized that nurturing this venture required vigilance and a meticulous approach. As they wrapped up their meeting, she asked, "So, how do we ensure this works? I mean, your father won't take kindly to his legacy being challenged." His heart sank at the reminder of that shadow looming over them. Jack contemplated how to fortify his plans against that influence. "We'll need a strategy to ensure we build momentum before we unveil this to him. It has to be robust and executed expertly." The realization of that necessity fueled him but also terrified him. He needed to facilitate a team that could withstand the inevitable turbulence ahead. It was essential they remained aligned in vision, committed to the journey. Sophia, sensing his hesitation, leaned forward. "What is holding you back, Jack? You have a vision. That's the hard part. Moving forward, you just need to make calls that align with your purpose. You can't let fear of your father's reaction stifle what you're trying to accomplish." Her insight struck a chord. He could no longer live in the shadow of inherited expectations. He had to confront not just his father's potential disapproval, but also his own lingering doubts. "You're right," he replied, steeling his resolve. "We'll chart our course, and when the time comes, the time will come," she interjected with conviction, affirming their alliance. "But make sure you're ready for whatever that entails." As they finalized their meeting, Jack felt the burgeoning sense of purpose rise again. Collaboration had awakened a determination that he hadn't just hoped for, but could almost taste now. His eyes sparkled with newfound clarity, envisioning the steps to safeguard their emerging enterprise from the dangers that lay in waiting. Leaving the coffee shop, he took a deep breath, grounding himself in the commitment he was forging not just to his vision, but to the responsibility that came with it. The stakes were rising, and Jack could not afford to waver. As he walked down the street, he sensed a dangerous clarity closing in. What revelations would he have to face when he confronted his father? The uncertainty loomed as a potent adversary, challenging his newfound identity. He could feel the moment approaching where preparing for confrontation would mean exploring uncharted emotional territory. Would he ultimately choose to sever the ties that had once represented security, and at what cost? The weight of those questions hung in the air, echoing back toward him with each step. Jack stood at the precipice of change, the sun setting behind the skyline, casting a golden hue across the city as he entered the conference room. Today would be different. Today, he would reveal his vision not just to Clara but also to the formidable board of directors, a conglomerate entwined in his family's legacy. This was no longer simply about resisting his father's expectations. This was an assertion of his identity. He shifted nervously as the members of the board took their seats, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. It was time to confront the intricate web of legacy and expectation he had spent so many sleepless nights unraveling. "Thank you all for gathering today," Jack began, his voice unwavering, a tone that had evaded him not long ago. "I want to share a vision for our company that reaches beyond inherited boundaries and taps into innovation and authenticity." As he spoke, he felt the nerves that had once rattled through him transform into a palpable energy. The words flowed, articulating a narrative that showcased the possibilities of collaboration rather than tradition. He highlighted the importance of progress, of a company that valued creativity over conformity, initiatives that encompassed both values and voices. Clara, seated beside him, watched intently, sensing the resolve radiating from Jack. This was the moment she had urged him toward, stepping into his leadership, unifying his aspirations with a defined authenticity. The room remained silent as Jack navigated through his meticulously crafted presentation, detailing plans to empower their team, build community, and tap into modern technologies. What once seemed like an audacious dream was becoming his reality. He was no longer chained to expectation, but shaping his future. As he concluded, he prepared for questions, aware that this unveiling could elicit resistance from members accustomed to the traditional modeling. "Jack, how do you propose to balance this approach with the family legacy?" One board member interjected, his expression skeptical but curious. Jack took a deep breath, recalling Clara's advice about embracing potential friction. "The legacy isn't a burden, it can be a foundation. However, we need to build something that stands on its own merits, that resonates authentically with our audience. Adapting to the changing landscape isn't abandoning our roots, it's a commitment to it." The board exchanged glances, weighing his arguments as Jack felt the shift of energy. Rather than retreating under pressure, he stood firm, advocating what he truly believed. Each question morphed into an opportunity, allowing him to infuse a sense of purpose into their discussion. Another voice rose. "What about your father's expectations? Do you believe he will support this direction?" Jack's heart raced as the thought of his father surged back into his mind. "For too long, the fear of his expectations held me captive," he admitted, every word dripped with clarity. "However, I am no longer looking to build something based on pressure to conform. This is about crafting our true narrative, one that aligns not just with family lineage but with who we truly are." The room fell into a hushed silence once again, the air thick with possibility. A shift had occurred. Jack could sense the board members leaning forward, intrigued instead of hesitant. Clara leaned subtly closer, her supportive presence amplifying the energy that surged through him. "The future does not lie in tradition alone. It emerges through innovation and the courage to take calculated risks. And if we do this right, we will not only preserve the legacy but enhance it," Jack concluded, determination blazing in his eyes. After a few moments that felt like a lifetime, the board members began to murmur among themselves, animated discussions blossoming as an embrace of Jack's vision took root. Ultimately, a member rose to speak. "Jack, I think we need to pursue this further. Your proposal aligns impressively with contemporary market sentiments. If you're ready to walk this path, I believe we should support it." A wave of relief washed over Jack. This was a crucial turning point, his first step into a new landscape of power, collaboration, and authentic leadership. The respect he had long sought, not needlessly defined by his father's expectations, suddenly morphed into a palpable reality as they moved forward. As conversations erupted around him, he turned to Clara, and their eyes locked in a moment of shared triumph and understanding. This was not just professional advancement, it was personal evolution. The shadows of anxiety faded as the light of confidence settled into his bones. He had achieved not only recognition of his competence, but solidified his role as a leader, not as a mere scion of his family's name, but as a visionary willing to reshape that identity into something vibrant, rich, and true to himself. As he stepped out of the conference room, the horizon expanded before him, filled with untold potential. Each forward stride felt empowered, grounded in the reality that he had the courage not only to confront his past, but to transform it into the future he envisioned. The greatest legacy he could build was one where he led with authenticity, inspired progress, and fostered connection. Jack savored the taste of victory, understand that true fulfillment lay not in approval, but in breaking free to carve out his unique path. He had faced his reservations, challenged standard expectations, and emerged reconciling the complexities of his identity with a newfound clarity. Now was the moment to embrace the next steps in advancing his changes, igniting new partnerships, and truly defining what success meant on his terms. This was a beginning layered with possibilities and the culmination of his journey to self-discovery and personal achievement. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that transform lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for journeys of personal growth. Comment your thoughts about this conclusion. Your reactions and theories matter to us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and become part of the change. Don't wait even one more second to share. It's time to unite in the stories that shape who we are.